Welcome back. The Secretary of Defense Mark Esper is endorsing a Navy fleet of more than 500 ships. Esper says that fleet will be, quote, more lethal, survivable, adaptable, sustainable, and modern. Seth Cropsey is a senior fellow at the Hudson Institute, former Deputy Undersecretary of the Navy. He's part of the team at Hudson that participated in the Future Navy Force Study. Seth, welcome. Thanks for coming back on the program. What is your vision compared to the Secretary's vision for getting into the 500s inventory-wise?
I think the important point here is that there is a shared vision, a shared understanding that that the fleet of the future needs to be larger, made up of smaller vessels that can address the question of global distribution, which is to say they can be where they're needed, forward deployed, and can combine the ability to conduct defensive plus offensive operations in a way that will overcome the threats that are rising from peer competitors. So on that point, I think that Secretary Esper and Hudson's report go together quite well.
You and others have coached me up over the years that the number is not the only important issue. The composition is also important. One of the things Secretary Esper said was Force's top priority should be building its attack subfleet from 51 today to between 70 and 80. Where does that comport with what you and your team recommend?
We also recommend an increase in the number of submarines. So long as they remain undetectable or virtually undetectable or hard to detect, they are valuable instruments for projecting power, for destroying enemy shipping, for conducting offensive operations, and not only manned submarines, but unmanned underwater vehicles as well. So I think that obviously the need for submarines is growing and will continue to grow in the future, especially as China builds more and more of them.
As I read the reports on the work of the Future Navy Force Study, my main takeaway was I don't see anyone proposing any kinds of technologies that don't already exist. This strikes me as more of a shipbuilding exercise and figuring out how to pay for it than a huge R&D exercise. Am I missing anything, Seth?
I think the issue that will be important here is the design of the smaller combatants from surface to subsurface, and also their command and control and their use, their collective use, for example, unmanned subsurface vehicles by their connection with artificial intelligence. And there, I think the platform is probably going to be less important than the ability to use a whole raft of platforms, a whole series of platforms, in a coordinated and effective offensive way.
But given what we've...
That's not... Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, no, finish your thought, please. I apologize.
Yeah, no, that's right. As most of us know, it often takes the Navy, usually takes Navy quite a while to design ships. And a smaller surface combatant is not likely to be an exception to that. So there are very real questions about, although there are not problems with smaller ships, but designing them with building smaller ships, but designing them could well be an issue. So we have to wait and see, and there are other options.
We have about a minute left, Seth. One of the reasons that I thought that platform concept was so important was the technology, and putting the technology onto the platform seemed, from my amateur perspective, to be what went wrong with the Ford Carrier and with the LCS program.
Well, to say it's been a problem is kind of an understatement. But I think it's important also to keep in mind that that this is all linked to the necessity of forward-based forces and being able to conduct operations thousands and thousands of miles from our coastline. And that is that cannot be separated from strategy. We're talking about force structure here, and force structure without strategy is sort of like a pedestal without a statue. So it's good that there seems to be motion in the direction of a more widely distributed, larger fleet composed of additional vessels that are smaller and more lethal. But that does not answer the question about what do you do with that? How exactly do you use that, and what are the strategic goals of such a force? So I just don't want to leave the impression that the subject is now done, over, finished. It's not.
We will continue that conversation in the future, Seth. Thanks very much for joining me today. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Good to see you again.